It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to talk about Pleroma. Now, if you've been around for a little while, if you've been paying attention for the last few weeks, you've seen what's been happening to Twitter. Someone bought Twitter, they changed ownership, and the person that bought it turned it into the biggest mess you've ever seen. They got rid of a bunch of people trying to cut costs, and it was the people who knew what they were doing and how to keep the site running. And then they changed rules and changed things and did things and just on and on and on. It made it really a terrible place for people to be. Now, in theory, he's going to step down and let somebody else take it over, but he's still the owner, so they're going to run it the way he wants. So if you've been looking around for another option besides Twitter, if you've never tried Twitter, and you've never thought about what it is, it's really kind of a place to get quick information, follow things that you're interested in, follow people that you're interested in. It's really not a bad place. I prefer Reddit. I love Reddit because it's subject specific. I can follow the subjects and topics that I want, and there's people that moderate their forums to make sure that people that are posting there are posting the topics that are supposed to be there. So it's kind of like I get to get the best out of what I want, and I'm not having to follow specific people. I just follow the topics that I enjoy. But that said, you can follow specific people. They have things you might enjoy. If you followed me on Twitter, you'd know when I put out new videos. That's basically all I post on Twitter for the most part. But I also use a thing called Mastodon. Now, Mastodon is a federated social network, and Pleroma is also a federated social network, and they both can connect together through what is called ActivityPub. ActivityPub is what lets these different applications all publish things and get federated. So you've got Pixelfed, you've got Pleroma, you've got Mastodon, you've got all different kinds of really cool open source applications that are out there that you can run and really be a part of that. Now, running your own server can mean a lot of things, and depending on why you're running it, can really have an impact on what you should understand about running those servers. I don't want to go into real deep detail about that, but just remember that you might have to moderate different users, because as you gain users, if other users are being abusive or upsetting people, you may have to ban somebody, kick them off, try to keep them off of your servers. You have to moderate the content. If they're putting content that is illegal in your country or in the place where you are serving that data from, that could get you as the person that's hosting that in a lot of trouble. So kind of keep that in mind. You want to be really cautious about what you allow on your sites, and you have to moderate those things. You also are responsible for keeping the server up to date, secured, and making sure people's information and data is secure. So you're taking on a little bit of responsibility, just like with anything else that you self-host. In this case, if you're trying to run this publicly, you just want to keep that in mind. That said, I think Pleroma is a little bit of a lower barrier to entry to get started with, and you still get the information that people get on Mastodon. You still see the posts and everything like that, and it's really not quite as difficult to get it set up and ready and running as I think Mastodon is going to be, so I'll tackle Mastodon in the future. But for now, I'm going to start with Pleroma, and if you'd like to try it out, definitely follow along. Now, there's a few things you're going to need in order to get this up and running. You're going to want to have Nginx Proxy Manager. This is the proxy that I use. Now, if you like traffic, if you know how to use it and configure it, that's great. Feel free to do that. If you want Caddy, again, feel free to use that. If you want to do Nginx and configuration files, feel free to do that. I like Nginx Proxy Manager. It's got a nice user interface. It's very easy to go into the user interface and set up a reverse proxy and really get things running. The next part, you're going to want to use Docker. I'm going to use Docker. Now, you can run Pleroma outside of Docker on bare metal. You can run Pleroma in probably a dozen different ways, but I'm going to use Docker because Docker makes it so much easier to get a server up and running and really kind of have things set and configured without having to run 10,000 different commands. That's just my opinion. That's the way that I like to do it, and it's very low resources, which means I can run a lot of other things on the same server. Docker Compose is just a really nice way for us to set up our Docker stuff and then run it all in one command. So I use Docker Compose as well. And then also Portainer. If you haven't tried Portainer, there's a community edition of Portainer that's out there that you can use. It's open source, and it really gives you a nice graphical user interface for controlling Docker. It makes it super easy to go in and update Docker containers, to see what's going on with your Docker containers, to get in and do commands inside of your containers, and so many other things that you have to do through the CLI, just manually. Portainer makes it really, really easy to do that. So those four tools we're going to use: Nginx, Docker, Docker Compose, and Portainer. Now, I have a script out there, and I'll have it linked in the description and in the show notes, that you go grab that script, you set up your server, and you run that script once, and it'll help you install Docker, Docker Compose, Nginx Proxy Manager, and Portainer. And when you run it, it's just going to ask you, do you want to install these 4 things? Or, pick your OS, whichever OS you're running for Linux. Then do you want to install this one? 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 Just hit Y for each one and then let it run, and it's going to run through and install everything and get up and running for you. And for the most part, from everybody that I talk to, it runs very easily. It runs very quickly, and 5 minutes you're up and running with all of these applications already ready to go. And the next thing you need to do is then we're going to jump in and do Pleroma. So we're going to get into the installation right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. Alright, to install Pleroma, we're going to follow some fairly straightforward things. Now, I know I don't talk about this a lot, but I put a lot of hours into making these videos. I do a lot of upfront testing and trying and all that kind of stuff just to make sure that I get things done and it's done well and something that's repeatable for you guys. I know occasionally somebody runs into an issue, but I hope for the most part when you guys do the steps that I do that everything works as well as it did for me. So I've done Pleroma 3 times now. This is actually recording. I did Pleroma before that several times just to get everything ready. The first time I recorded it, I just wasn't happy with the way that everything came out. The second time I recorded it, everything went really well, but somehow I messed up and I completely did not record the installation part. I don't know what happened. I only had like 2 seconds of video at the beginning and then that was it. Nothing else was going. So I don't know if I accidentally double clicked on the record button. Something weird happened and it just did not record. So I am doing this for the 3rd time. This should go pretty smooth. So we're going to get into the installation right now. And then I'm going to show you how to open up the user interface and how to get things set up and configured so that you can get some traffic going, everything like that. But we're going to set this up. We're going to set up an actual URL. So one of the things you're going to have is an actual domain name. I own the domain routemehome.org. I use that for a lot of my videos. Now I have set up a special A record and you will need to do this as well. You can either set up an A record that is for the actual subdomain or domain that you want to use, and it needs to point to the public IP for where your Pleroma server is going to run. Now I'm going to run this inside my home network, so it's going to get a private IP address. But I have Nginx Proxy Manager there to help me with that. So basically when somebody types in, and I'm going to call this pl.routemehome.org. So when somebody types in pl.routemehome.org, it's going to redirect them to my home public IP address. From there, I forward port 80 and 443 through my firewall to the Nginx Proxy Manager system. In Nginx Proxy Manager, we're going to set up an entry for pl.routemehome.org, and we're going to tell it, if this request comes in, send it to the server that's running Pleroma. We'll give it the port number, everything like that. And then we'll also get some Let's Encrypt SSL certificates for Pleroma, which is going to make everything work correctly. So we're going to do this all together. It's going to be pretty straightforward, but you definitely want to make sure you have Docker Compose installed, and Nginx Proxy Manager. Portainer is an optional install, but I'll show you why it's super useful while we're going through this. But first we're going to start in the command line. So I'm already logged into my server, and I keep all of my Docker folders inside of a Docker parent folder. That way I can just zip this up and back it up, and all the stuff that's in there and the volumes get backed up with it. So I get nightly backups that way, and I just feel better knowing that if anything happens, I've got a backup that I can go grab, pull over, and get started running again if I need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to clone this repository, which is for Pleroma, and that's going to create an actual folder for Pleroma. So this is the command we're going to use. It's git clone, and then here's the address for Pleroma. And this is not GitHub, but this is their own, I think it's GitLab maybe that they run this on. But once you hit enter, as long as you have git installed, it's going to go pull down Pleroma. And it's very quick. It's very small. So now if we do another ls, you'll see here I've got, not there, but down here I've got Pleroma Docker Compose. So we'll cd into that directory. And we're just going to clear this out so I keep everything where you guys can see it. And if we do an ls, you'll see a few things here. There's a docker compose.yaml file, which we'll check here in just a minute. there's this environments folder and then this volumes folder. So it's very important to know that these are here because we're going to use these as we go along. Now the environments folder, we need to go in and change a few things. So we're going to do nano environments Pleroma and then pleroma.env. And when we do this, you'll see there's a few things in this file, in this folder. The first thing that we want to change is the password for our database. And this is a Postgres database, and it seems to have some kind of quirks about what characters you're allowed to use. So I suggest only upper lowercase characters, numbers, make it random, and make it about 8 to 10 characters long, maybe 12 if you can. But, make it something that's not easy for somebody to guess. So I'm going to just do something kind of random because I'm going to destroy this after we're done. So we'll leave that as our database password. Now, I'm going to grab this and copy it because I'm going to need it again here in just a minute. So the DB user, I'm going to leave the same because in the way that this runs, it uses the DB user as kind of the default database name. So there's some extra things you have to do if you want to change this username. I would say for now, leave it like this. If you want to go look up how to do that later, you can. DB name Pleroma is fine. And then the instance name is Pleroma. That's fine. But here we need to change these emails. So we're going to go change this. And I'm going to just put in my email. You'll want to use your email, of course. And then here we're going to put in the actual domain that we're going to use. So I'm going to use pl.routemehome.org. The port 4000 is fine. I don't use port 4000 for anything. If you do, you may want to change that port right here and just remember what you changed it to because you'll need that as well in another file. So we'll do Control O to save and then Enter to confirm. We'll do Control X to exit. Now we're going to go and edit another env file. So we're going to go back into environments, Pleroma db, and then postgres.env. And here, all we need to do is change this password right here. And we're just going to paste in the one we copied from the other file. We're going to do Control O to save, Control X to exit. There we go. And now we're going to just change our Docker Compose file, nano docker compose.yaml. And we're going to go down through here and just check everything, make sure it looks correct. So this already says that for the environment file, it's going to pull from that pleroma.env that we just edited. So that's good. It's got pleroma.db as the dependency. Now, for us, we need to remove this part right here. We're going to leave this as 4000:4000, but we're going to remove the 127.0.0.1 and the first colon. So remove those, and you just should be left with 4000:4000. As we move down, the volumes are fine. Just leave those as they are because it puts them inside the volumes folder, which is inside of our Pleroma folder, which is inside of our Docker folder, which is what we want. As we go down, we're going to look at the Pleroma DB. And again, it's going to use an env file here in a minute that we've already adjusted, which is great. All of these labels are fine. Just leave them alone. And everything else here should be okay. And then here we're going to leave this. We're going to leave 127.0.0.1 and we're going to leave this port mapping because this is the port for Postgres and this is the address where it will be running. It'll be running localhost. In this case, that's how it sees it. Then the volumes leave alone and that should be it. We're going to get rid of this last line right here. We'll just leave one extra line in the document. That's it. Good. We're going to do Control O, Enter to just confirm we want to save it. We'll go back up one more time. Just double check everything. Make sure we didn't mess anything up in the formatting. Everything looks good. We'll do Control X to exit. So we've updated 3 files now. We've updated the postgres.env, the pleroma.env, and the dockercompose.yaml. So we're pretty close to ready to actually pull down the images and get the containers running. So I'm going to clear this out, and to get this running, we're going to use docker-compose up-d. Then we're going to do 2 ampersands. So we're going to put a second command here. So the first command is docker compose up-d. You can run that all by itself if you want to. But what I like to do is put a second command that says once it's up and running, docker compose logs-f. Once it's up and running, show me the log output of how this thing's running and what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. And you'll see it's going to go grab the images that it needs. Now it's going to come up and say done and done. We just want to watch this log output, make sure we don't see anything that looks like it's going to be some kind of problem or an error. And we'll get to a point where it says it's trying to set the time zone data. That at that point, it pretty much means it's up and it's running. So we're kind of ready to kind of test everything out and check it out. But it's not going to run real well yet because we don't have our actual URL forwarded to this machine yet. That's going to be our next step. So it says that it's migrated all of the data for the database. It's starting, so that's good. So you'll see all that text kind of scroll up the screen like that. There we go. Now we've got the time zone data information here. So you see this TZ data and TZ data. So that tells me that it's probably up and running. So we're going to go back to our browser. And we're going to go to the IP address here. Now this is the private IP address of the machine you're running this on, of the host. And I'm going to go to port 4000. Now it should come up, but it's going to be a blank screen. Just like that. We're not going to get anything yet because it wants us to come in through HTTPS. But if we try to come in through HTTPS right now, there's no certificate, no self-signed certificate. So it's still not going to load even if you try that. So we've got this running. That's a good start. Now we're going to go into Nginx Proxy Manager. So you got to log in. Hopefully you've gone through all the process. I've got a video on how to get all this stuff installed with that single run script. Videos on how to use Nginx Proxy Manager, but we're going to create a new proxy. We're going to add a proxy, and it's going to be called PL. So we're going to type that into this field here, pl.routemehome.org. And we're going to hit tab just to get that chip. See how it turns into a chip. Then we're going to put in the IP address of our server. And we're going to put 4000 for the port. We're going to say block common exploits and allow WebSockets. And it's publicly accessible. So this is what we want first. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to scroll down. Here's PL. I'm just going to click on it, make sure I still get that blank screen, which I do. You see nothing comes up. So that's a starting good sign. We're going to go back to this entry. We're going to move over here to the right. We're going to click on the three dots and click on Edit. We're going to jump to this SSL tab right here. We're going to click on the drop down, and we're going to click Request a Certificate. And then we're going to say Force SSL HTTP2. And we're going to agree to the Let's Encrypt Terms of Service and make sure our email is typed in. Once you've got those things ready, you're going to hit Save. Now, once in a while, I get it where this thing gives me a little pink bar up here, but no error message. It's just like it didn't work. I just click Save again, and usually it goes through the second time. But if this box goes away, just like that, without any issues, without any errors or warnings, then you should have a Let's Encrypt certificate. So if we look here, we see PL, and it now says Let's Encrypt. Before this, it said HTTP only. So if we click on this, it's going to take us to our site, and we get the user interface to pop up. Now, we'd like to log in, but we don't have a login yet. So we've got to go do that. Now, one of the things you can do is you can do that through Portainer. So that's why I suggest Portainer as an option. So we're going to go open up my Portainer instance here. And when you run Portainer, now I've got it zoomed in, but you see I've got more than one machine that I'm actually controlling that has Docker running on it. So I control multiple systems with Docker running on it. And right now I'm using my Docker test, so I'm going to click on it. That's going to take me into that Portainer instance. I'm going to go over to my containers. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find Pleroma right here. And here's Pleroma DB. Now, one of the nice things is from here, I can click on this little command icon. And right here, I'm going to change this to bin sh because it's not bash, it's sh. Leave it as root, and I can click on connect. And now I'm inside of the Docker container at a terminal prompt, which means I can start running commands right there inside of that. Now, if you don't have Portainer, if you said, I don't want to do that, don't worry. We can still do this, so we're just going to do Control-C to get out of the logs. Okay, we're going to clear this out, and we're going to do this command, docker exec-it, and we're going to type in the name of the container, which is Pleroma, Pleroma /bin/sh, just like that. When you hit enter, it's going to put you in that same exact spot. So if you look there and you look here, you see you're in the exact same place. Whether you do it through Portainer or you do it through the command line, it's up to you. Okay, so no matter which one you're in, and we'll do it here. Let's just do cd and hit enter, and you see how it turns into a little tilde, and I'll do it over here as well. So now if I do cd and hit enter, I want that, because now if I do ls, I have bin, which is important because we have some command line tools that we want to use from there. So I'm going to paste in this command, and I'll make this full screen again. So you can do this whether you're in Portainer or whether you're in the command line, but we're going to use ./bin/pleroma_CLI space user. So we need to go change these things where it has little angle brackets, and it's user new, and I'm going to put in my username. So I'll do mick in tx, and then it wants my email. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff, and I'm going to put in brian@fixitdelrio.com. And then my password out here. So I want to put in a nice strong password. Now you'll be able to see it, but again, I'll get rid of this container after we're done, so no problem. But I'm going to make it strong. So I'm going to say something like that. Now I'm going to copy that so I have it in a minute. You should use a password manager for this kind of stuff. You really shouldn't just do this freehand and then try to remember it, but there we go. I've got it. Now everything else here should be good. So once you've replaced your username, your email, and your password, you're just going to hit enter. And you'll see here it's going to kind of say, hey, did you want to do this? And it's going to show you what it did, and then it's going to go through and run those commands. So we're done with that part right now. So now we should be able to go back to the web interface. I'm going to put in my username, which was mick in tx, and I'm going to put in that password that I copied. I'm going to say login and save, and now it logged me in. So I'm logged into my Pleroma instance, but you see I don't have anything here. So I have the home timeline, which means my server. The public timeline, I can say load, but nothing's going to come in. The known network, again, load, but nothing's going to come in. So there's these different timelines you can look at, but we're not connected to anything yet. We don't have any other users in the system yet, so there's nobody posting anything. Now we can post, so I can say my first test post on a Pleroma server. We can do a subject. We can type in some kind of information, just my first post in a new Pleroma server. Okay, and then I can say post. Now that's going to be on my local home timeline. There it is. It's right there. You can see you've got favorite, boost as they call it, which means retweet or whatever you want to call it, reply to the person, have a conversation, all kinds of information here. Now I'm going to delete this status because I don't want it going out to the rest of the Fediverse there. You know, that's kind of weird, but you know, just put test messages out there is not cool. So I just wanted to show you that it can be done and it does show up. So that's cool. I'm going to say allow notifications from the system. That's fine. So what we've got to do is we've got to go set up some actual other things on the system to make it work. Now, as the person that's the administrator, you have this little icon up here that looks like a dashboard icon. So when you click that, it'll open up a new tab. It's going to tell you, hey, you can't really make changes here because they're not going to work. They're not set up for the database. You're expected to go make changes in a configuration file and then save those and then restart stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it so that we can actually be the admin and make changes here in this UI if we want to. So there's a little bit more stuff that we have to do. No big deal. All right, so you can do this in two ways. You can do it through here. You can do an ls and you can kind of see where things are at. But we've already got volumes mapped. So we're going to go back into the command line. And we're just going to hit exit for just a minute, which puts us back in our regular command line. And if we do ls again, we've got this volumes folder. Inside of this volumes folder is a Pleroma folder with a config inside of it. So we want to do nano volumes Pleroma config.exs. And here you're going to see something just like this. It's going to say import config, and that's it. What we want to do is make one extra line, and then I'm going to paste this stuff in. Now this is in the show notes so you guys can get it. Now there's a few things you have to replace here, but you're going to put this as config Pleroma web endpoint, and right here we're going to put the host, and here we have to put our host name. So we're going to put pl.routemehome.org. Okay. HTTPS is the schema, 443 is the port that we're using, and then down it goes config Pleroma repo, ecto.adapters.postgres we don't mess with. The Pleroma username is where we left it. Now if you changed that and you went through those other steps that you have to do that are out there in the documentation, make sure you change it here. But then we need this Pleroma password. So we're going to get rid of this right here. We're going to save this for a second. So I'm just going to say cat environments Pleroma DB Postgres, and I'm just going to grab the password right here. Just going to right click, copy, and then I'm going to go back into that same file I was just editing. And I'm going to come down here, and right between these quotes, I'm going to paste that in with Control-Shift-V. Everything else we left the same. We should not have to change anything else. So all we had to change was this URL and this password. If you changed your username, you would change that here as well. But everything else should stay the same. We're going to do Control-O, Enter to save, Control-X to exit. We've got that set. Now we need to go back into that configuration. So we can do that through Portainer, or you can do it here with the same exact command that we used before. You can just use the up arrow to go back through your commands, and here's our command to get into the Pleroma terminal. We're going to do CD the first time, so we have the little tilde. And now we're going to run this command. So it's /bin/pleroma_CLI space config migrate _to_db. So we're telling it, migrate the configuration to the database. I don't want to use config files anymore. I want it to be done in the database. Once you've got this, hit enter. Just be patient for a second. You'll probably come back to this. If you have some configs already set up, it may give you some output, but since we didn't, it just comes right back to the terminal. But as long as you don't get an error, everything should be good. Now we can type exit and get out of the Docker CLI there. And we're good. We're going to go back to our website. And we're going to close this. We're going to go just restart our compose file just to make sure everything takes effect. We're going to do docker-compose down. It's just going to bring everything down, bring the services down. You can probably just do a docker compose restart, but I'm just going to bring them down. Just give it a second. It just takes a minute. And we're going to do docker compose up-d and then the docker-compose logs-f. So that's going to bring our compose bring it back up. It's going to run through this startup again. It's going to pick up our new config, and then we're going to look for that same information that we looked for before. All right, I had a couple of funny little quotes there on that last line. We'll do cat volume /Pleroma config. And on this line right here, for whatever reason, it had some different quotation marks there. They were kind of slanted forward, and it was causing a problem. So if you see that, go fix that. Make sure they look just like all the rest of the quotes. But now, if we do docker compose up-d, docker compose logs-f, everything should come up, start running like normal. It'll say starting, and again, we're looking for that TZ data information. There we go. Now we're getting our TZ data. We can go back to our site. Everything's up and running. Now, if we open up our admin, we do get this, but we don't get that red warning anymore. So now we can go through our administration and actually make some changes if we want to. So for one, you can control users from here. Out of the box, I don't believe registration is turned on by default, so you'll want to do that as well, and we'll make a change to that config file here in just a minute to get that started. If you want to allow registration, if you don't, you can add users manually and then let them log in. So you can check statuses of users and you can filter. There's a lot of reporting and things in here. There's more reports. Then you've got your moderation log for things where you've had to take moderation action. Relays we're going to set up in just a minute to get some other servers set up as relays. The media proxy cache, you can also set up if you want to. It's not something you have to do. And then this doesn't actually have, oh yeah, there we go. So this has ActivityPub, authentication, so you can set up different authentication methods and kind of set things up. You can set up CAPTCHA, emoji, there's front-end settings. So there's a lot of settings in here that you can kind of go through and check out. There's quite a bit of stuff that you can really do with this. It's really actually pretty cool. So tons of settings. I'm going to let you guys kind of get in there and jump around and look through the settings. If you have questions, ask questions. There's just so much here. It could be a video on its own, honestly. But I think most of it's pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to go back and we're going to make one more change to that config file. And we'll just stop our log from running there. And what we're going to do, cat volumes Pleroma, or Pleroma. I say Pleroma all the time, it's the wrong word. Pleroma, and then config. And we can see that, so now we'll just change that to nano. And in here, we're just going to make a couple of spaces there at the top. And I'm going to grab this and paste it in. So here we've got config Pleroma, our instance, registration open, true. So this will turn on registration for people to be able to register for our Pleroma instance if they want to. And then federating, true, to set up federating. So we're going to hit Control-O, hit enter to save, Control-X. This time we'll do docker compose restart. So it's going to bring those down and then bring them back up. And then anytime you make a change to a config file, it's really good to check your logs. There we go, we've got our starting. That's a good start, that's a good sign. And again, we're kind of looking for those TZ data lines. That's where we know that the system's up and actually running and ready for us to start using things. I think I saw them scroll by pretty quick up there a while ago. We're going to get more data as we add more things. So I'm just going to get out of that. Go back to our page and we're just going to refresh here. I'm going to go here, relays, and now we want to find some relay sites that we can actually use for getting some information about this. So when you want to find relays, there's this site, and I'll link to it. It's got a pretty good wiki. And what you'll see is you're going to just click on this, see if it opens up, which I think Friendica.ca does. And a lot of these give you the actual URL that you need in order to federate, depending on if you're using Mastodon or if you're using Pleroma. So in this case, it tells you Pleroma, here's the link. So we're just going to copy this right here. And you can just right click, oops, let me go back. I clicked on it. You can right click, copy link, and we're going to go back in here and we're going to paste that in. And as long as it just kind of comes back like that with no error, we're good. It should be federating. You might want to get a couple more and look for things that, you know, look like good sites for you or for your area. If you click on Federation Stream and it doesn't come up, then it's not a good one. It's not working, so don't try to use it. So that's why I say click on it before you actually copy it and try to use it. So here's one called the Code Project. It comes up and it says if you're on Mastodon, use this link. If you're on Pleroma, use this one. So we'll just copy that guy. Again, go back, paste it into our relays and hit follow. And then if you see that little refresh like that and it comes back without an error, you're doing good. So we'll just hit back. Let's find one more. Let's just set up 3 here. Let's try Feditools. Yeah, it looks like that works. And here's the Pleroma link right here. So we're just going to copy that. And again, paste it in, hit follow. And again, if it refreshes, we're doing good. So we can close this part, go back to our Fediverse here, and if we go to known network, there we go. You start to see that you're getting stuff already pulled in from the Fediverse, which is great. So we've pulled in a couple of things. I think we can look at public, but I don't think we have anything there yet. Yeah. So we've got this one. So we're getting information into our Pleroma site, and little by little we're building out that configuration file that helps us do that, but also you've got some configuration that you can do here on this part as well. So you can always jump over here, you can add more relays, you can remove relays, you can kind of control your users. Now, if I open up a tab or a browser window that's private, and I go to pl.routemehome.org, so I can see that I've got this already running. There's already more stuff coming in, and it says register. So I'm going to click on register. It's going to ask me for a username. I'm just going to say Testy Bob. Display name Bob Testerton. Email is going to be test@fixitdelrio.com. Then you have to create a password, of course. So we're going to make a nice strong password. we're going to confirm it. And then we've got to do our CAPTCHA. I think that's PALKY. We're going to find out if I read it right. And there we go. And now I'm registered and I'm logged in as Bob Testerton. So I'll say I'll allow notifications. But you notice I don't have the little dashboard icon, which is the idea. I'm not a person that's an admin, but I should be able to come in and say, I'm going to post that. If I go to my local timeline, I can see it right here. Public timeline, it's there. And then known network. So these are coming from the outside, and then you've got the public and local. Now, of course, I want to delete this again. I don't want to make people have to read my test stuff, so I don't want to do that. But there we go. Now you can see you've got control over it. You can start following people. You can start searching for people. You've got your own little Fediverse set up. Now, if you don't want to federate, you don't have to. You can set this up and just use this with your family or your friends or anybody. And if it's not federated, nobody else can see it. It's only the people that you allow to log in and use it. It's telling you this post is going to be visible to everyone. Just so you know, it's going to go on the public timeline unless you change it. So you can kind of preview your post. So, right. And then I think you can do like, yeah, emojis here. Let's do something really cool. Yeah, okay. Super stoked, right? So there you can see what's going to happen. If you put a picture in, everything else, it's all just going to kind of show you what's happening. It's going to show you what the post is going to look like up here. You can do plain text, HTML, Markdown, and even BB code. So if you know BB code, I used to know BB code, then use it, go for it. Apparently that works as well. You can lock this thing, unlock it, make it public, all different ways to do things. Lots of really cool controls and a lot of really cool stuff here. And then you can check out different timelines. You can kind of see what's going on over here. Interactions. So you can see what kind of interactions are going on. People mention you, people follow you, people do other things. Pretty cool. Chats where you're having direct messages with people. And then, of course, the About page for this instance. And notifications will show up down here as well if people start notifying you of things. So this is really a good start on setting up your own Pleroma Fediverse self-hosted web page or site and server, and getting it set up with relays and getting it where it's federated and getting out there where you really are getting into the world of social networking, and you're helping spread the world out into a federated social network instead of having it all centralized under one big company. Get out there, be social. You can follow me on Mastodon as well. I'll have the information in the description and the show notes. It's your open source advocate, and I'm back, and I've set up a store with a little bit of merchandise. I love being your open source advocate, but I want you guys to be the open source advocates with me. So if you want to, get out there and get some of this stuff. And if you do, let me know what you think of it. Thank you for subscribing. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along in the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.